everyone, and welcome again to this episode of Kopi with Chris. It is time for KWC. And before I begin the show, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Singapore and all hawkers in Singapore on being awarded the UNESCO Food Heritage Award for our unique hawker food culture. And also, a very big thank you to my Kopi Kaki who was here before on my show. KFCito is a great birthday present for you. Thank you, Cito, and everyone who were involved in this effort. And congratulations once again, Singapore. Now back to the show. I have a very interesting person with me in my studio, and he is Mr. Esmond Wee.
Hello.
Thanks, Esmond, for being my Kopi Kaki today.
Oh.
You know, it's a staple of my show. I say this all the time. To ask my Kopi Kaki to actually introduce themselves to my audience and listeners. You seem to keep a low profile, although people in the local indie music scene actually know, or seem to know you actually. Tell me, who is Esmond Wee? What are you all about? What do you do?
Presently, I'm a father of three, very much into parenting at the moment. I think this year with COVID and all that has kind of shifted a lot of our priorities and all that. So this year's all about just family and all that. But I think in my past life, or I don't know if it's still current, but I've dabbled in local music. Then translated to streetwear because I ended up working and distributing streetwear brands.
Okay.
And then I'm still involved with music as well because I started another company after that. To help promote overseas and international musicians in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
As well. So it's quite kind of colorful. I kind of just took opportunities that came my way, try to make fun into something that I could live with and something I can earn a living with.
Wow.
And it's been okay so far. I have raised 3 kids and I have a happy home. So yeah,
well, you know, I mean, that sounds so cool. Everything sounds so great, so nice and bright and cheery. You're doing the things you love, and then but somehow I wanted to say something. I wanted to interject earlier on and say, you know, you sound more like a retiree.
That's true. Yeah,
because COVID took a turn for you, made a turn for you, and you were stuck at home.
Yeah, I was stuck at home, but lots of things came by. You know, just shifting in priorities. You know, realizing that. I got a bit sick as well. So I think I had gastritis and all that. So that's why Chris was asking me earlier. It's like, hey, you lost some weight. I'm like, yeah, I got healthy because of gastritis as well. But I don't mean to sound old. I think with the 3 kids at home, it's intense. You know, they're at home all the time.
How old are they, man?
The youngest is 5. The second child is 10, and my eldest is 13.
Oh, yeah, more than a handful.
Yeah, so and they're all in different stages of life. My daughter's a teenager now, and I'm trying my best to navigate that. My son is a little bit aggro because he's the middle kid. Yeah, you know, and the youngest one is about to enter primary 1. So just like it's a handful. Yeah.
I do not want to be in your shoes, actually.
No regrets. It's just fun. It's fun. Lots of new perspectives. I get to understand the younger kids a lot these days, you know. So I always tell my friends, listening to new music, you know, when you're a little bit older, you tend to stick to what you're used to, right? But my kids have their own playlists in the car. Okay. And they're into, you know, newer trends like Billie Eilish and they're not into BTS, but I have friends that are into it. So
my kid's coming 12, and he's so much into Charlie Puth.
Him as well. Yeah. And the Jonas Brothers guy, what's his name?
Louis Capaldi.
I don't know most of them, but like if you play me their music, I'm like, okay, I recognize that from the car, and it's being repeated many times.
so they got a bit of the chip of the old block, right? Your kids.
Yeah, I did try to introduce them to the music that I used to listen to quite a bit, and they seem to be open to it. So I'm actually pretty proud of my daughter's playlist. It's got a bunch of indie stuff and a bunch of current stuff as well. She kind of shies away from a lot of popular music, interestingly. So the indie side of me is like, that's the right move.
I've also noticed a lot of the younger kids today, they're kind of old souls as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. You know, some of them like listening to the stuff I used to listen to when I was younger.
Well, it's a bit of a cycle. So the stuff that we were into or we were pushing long ago as a music label was emo. You know, it's indie and emo music.
Okay.
You know, like after punk was emo, and
Wait.
yeah,
What the fuck's emo, man?
emo is it's like it came out of the punk rock and the hardcore scene. So it's like emotionally charged music.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in popular culture, like your bands like My Chemical Romance,
Okay.
Fall Out Boy, they
Oh,
all
right,
came
Fall
from
Out
that.
Boy, yeah.
They all came from that
Okay.
that subculture.
Oh, you're schooling me here, man.
I don't. I mean, it's something that we kind of grew up with. We kind of dabbled in, and I think the community that I was in, we kind of introduced Singapore into that.
Okay.
Into that as well, and then after that, it became really popular culture. I don't
Right.
think we probably didn't introduce Singapore, but it was brewing in the underground music taste as well.
Okay.
So we had bands that emulated that music, and then there were festivals that we put up and that we played in. And all.
You've been saying we've been doing this, we brought it over, we organized that and this. Let's talk about at this moment,
Yeah.
you're running a company called Practical Measures.
Yeah.
What is it? What's that company all about?
Oh, it's just a distribution company for a couple of streetwear brands. So, I distribute Obey clothing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it's about 30 years already as a brand. It's a bit of a heritage brand already, but it was really popular in the 90s, late 90s and early 2000s when it really blew up.
Right.
It's made famous by the artist Shepard Fairey, you know, the guy who did the Obama portrait on Time magazine.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's got tons of murals. This is his iconic face that the brand is known for.
Wow.
So been doing it for about 10 years already.
Okay.
And kind of navigating the changes of street culture and streetwear in Singapore. It's very different from when it was 10 years ago.
So how old are you now? As a father of 3 kids, how old are you?
I'm 39.
So you're 39 years
Yeah.
old, and you're still so in touch with what's happening for the youth today.
I try to be. I mean, information really moves really fast, so I try to be. Yeah, but
can't
I
catch
would
up,
say
man.
I also cannot catch up sometimes.
You can't catch up, man. I'm left far behind.
It's because you're in the gym a lot.
Well, hey, come on. Don't make it sound as if I really sleep 24/7 in the gym. I don't. But frankly, man, it's true. As we age, we just find it so hard to just catch up with all these things.
Yeah, especially with information moving at the pace it moves now. You know, so what could be popular 2 years ago is already passé now.
Yeah.
And then if you take a look at fast fashion brands, right, and they're just they're able to spot trends and it'll be on a runway or in stores in 6 months or less, you know, and that's
But for me, streetwear, for someone from my generation, would be places like 77th Street. You know, when Elim Chew started the whole thing, and that to me was streetwear, or Lips. Lips
stores
in
at
Far East Plaza. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the introduction to streetwear for me in Singapore as well. You know, I used to. I mean, I wasn't a Far East kid, but I used to go there a lot too. That's great. I mean, I think you'll know a lot of my friends then. But yeah, I mean, I remember the Stussy store at across Far East at Pacific Plaza.
Yeah.
You know, it's all these it was really fashion that spoke to me, and I think we kind of were into the subcultures of it, you know, the music behind it, and people who skated, you know, definitely streetwear and skate have a lot of synergy as well.
Yeah. So the skating, that period, am I right to say that was a time, were you skating?
No, I wasn't a skater.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now, we'll come back to practical measures later.
Sure.
Many years ago, you used to work with Wake Me Up Music.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it was a collective. It's a bunch of guys that came together and wanted to just have a community that supports musicians in Singapore. You know, at that time we were really struggling as musicians ourselves. You know, we had our own little bands that we started in secondary school or whatever, and you know, sometimes we would have the budget to cut a CD, or we'll pull together enough money, you know, save up money from our show payments and all that. And the thing is, we realized we couldn't get our music on air, and we couldn't get racking, or you know, we couldn't find people to put our music in shelves like HMV and Tower Records and all that.
Yeah.
So the Wake Me Up Music as a community, we came together and we decided, you know what, okay, we're gonna just set up a record label. We're
So,
gonna
so
tell people.
Wake Me Up Music was a label, so really a record
It
label.
was a lot of things. So we had a shop in Margaret Drive.
Oh,
Yeah, so we had so backtrack, we started doing events first.
okay.
We put up events, local shows, and
Right.
all that. The predecessor was Awakening Productions, and then it became Wake Me Up Music after
Okay.
that. Yeah, I don't know if you know of, it was founded by a guy called Glenn Lim. So he's a somewhat famous public speaker right now. His story was he used to be a druggie and sold drugs, and then he was spared, and then he turned his life around and just did positive things after that.
Okay,
And,
wow.
us as kids and the youth that were playing in bands and all that, we just got to know him and were part of this community, and it kind of grew into different things. So there were events, and there was a shop as well in Margaret Drive, and we sold CDs. We had secondhand guitars, vintage secondhand clothing that we would source around from like KL and
Sounds
Philippines.
fun, man.
It was fun, and we had a rehearsal studio as well. We had a jam studio there as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so Margaret Drive was really special, and for the skaters, like there was Go Sports just a few units down, which was another iconic. It was like the most iconic skate shop in Singapore as well.
Okay.
So Margaret Drive and that whole area was pretty cool, and there was a really good hawker center there as well, but it got torn down. Yeah. And we had a record label too. So on top of that, we decided to create a record label.
So Wake Me Up Music,
Yeah.
it began because the mainstream, in all forms, whether they're the press, whether they are the radio stations, or whether they are your mainstream record labels, they just wouldn't want to sign indie bands.
I won't say sign. I don't think we even had the ecosystem to begin with. And I think I remember our motto was we wanted to create music to reach an audience who wasn't listening.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so-
why Wake Me Up.
Yeah. So
What's your thoughts about that? Is it at that time? I think it's still it's kind of similar today, don't you think? That our local independent bands are not really being featured as much. Has things changed?
I think it's changed drastically. I mean, definitely guys these days, you're seeing like the independent musicians play at the NDP, they have deals with the three major labels, Sony, Warner, and Universal.
Right.
They're in their own right. A lot of them are celebrities and personalities as well. So I think that definitely is that development. And with the internet, it's much easier to reach an audience sitting in his bedroom. You don't have to rely on the newspaper or IRC.
Yeah, sure. IRC, my God.
All that.
So do you think Wake Me Up Music actually had quite a major role to play for this development?
Yeah, I would confidently say we built some bridges for that. Through the bands that were on our label and on our management roster, and the events that we put up. We're all just part of that ecosystem that continued to grow, and I think it's still growing right now. Definitely, you see the popular guys like the Sam Willows or Ben King,
Yeah,
all these guys. They all came from independent bands before, and the fact that they're able to make this a living right now, I think it's testament to how the industry has grown.
But those days, that was before social media. So for your business, or can I call it a business? Was that considered a business?
It's kind of
A
like
movement?
it was a hobby, and we all had full-time jobs outside.
Oh, okay.
A lot of us were in NS as well, either like PESC or something like that. You book out at 4:30. I had a miracle that happened to me. I had no idea how I ended up in the SAF band. So I would book out at 4:30, and I'll just go to the shop and volunteer, and do all that stuff. So
Right.
national service helped out a little bit, depending on vocation. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had that life.
I
was staying all the while.
I got
all the
paid
way.
back, man. So my reservist was hell.
Okay.
I went back to combat.
Okay.
So the government kept tabs on me. It's like, I had it easy for NS. Just blow your trumpet for 2 years.
So, back to the point.
Yeah.
It was pre-social media back
Yeah.
then. Distribution and awareness mustn't have been easy then.
Yeah, it wasn't. But there were still channels. I mean, luckily enough, there were music writers and editors that were working for major papers and all that, and they would, with enough buzz when you play when there's more events going on, with local bands,
Right.
more little community events and community centers that support it, little government initiatives as well that support it. Then
Yeah.
I would say the community grows, the awareness grows as well.
Because they have no choice but to report these events.
Yes and no, I guess. I mean, they could choose not to and be ignorant, but
Yeah.
it's still news at the end of the day. It's still something new. You know?
But you built such great awareness and the following for your bands, I mean, up to this day, it's still massive. Like, for example, the first band you signed was Plain Sunset.
Yeah, they were first on our roster.
Yeah. And the following's still massive to today. You must have done a lot of work.
They were really the people's band. They really managed to transcend different generations as well. So if from my window and my view, right, they managed to just develop younger audiences along the way, even as they got older as well. But yeah, they've been playing for 20 over years as well. So they have a repertoire and they have built an audience.
Yeah, but how did you start helping them build that following since, at that time?
Hard work, lots of gigging, lots of underground shows. And I think testament to the band, they did probably 60% of the work because they were just willing to play. They were willing to write a lot of new music. And, I would say, I used to have this saying that a lot of local bands have a 5-year cycle. So they'll start in maybe late secondary school or before NS in poly or something.
Okay.
Then they hit NS, and depending on their vocations and all that, where they go, they'll make it through NS, which is 2 years.
Right.
And then after that, university, or whatever, and then they'll be able to do it for a little while. But then when work starts,
That's it.
A lot of bands stop,
Yeah.
or they make it a hobby and then they fizzle out, or they realize, trends have changed. So
Right.
and they can't adapt to it. They don't last that long. But for Plain Sunset, 20 over years, that's testimony to
But
resilience.
how did they manage to just stay together for so long, despite the fact, like you said, you go to poly, you go to university, you go to NS, and then or NS university, and then things start to slow down or completely come to a stop.
Yeah.
The moment you go to work.
Yeah, a lot of it is.
But how did these guys continue, man?
I don't think it's any different from working in a company or being in a marriage. I think thankfully for them, their personalities gel. There's like there are clear roles within
Everyone
the band.
gets along.
Everyone gets along, or if they don't get along, they're able to resolve it as well.
Okay.
And everybody is chill enough or has a vision long enough to say, yeah. I mean, all of them have jobs as well. Have jobs, and it wasn't like their full-time gig.
So it's all just good old commitment and dedication. isn't
Commitment
it?
and dedication, hard work.
So does this mean that there can be more hope for other bands to even emulate what these guys have achieved so far?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it now. I mean, if you look at band like someone like Charlie Lim, I think he's close to like 10, 12 years or more as a musician already. I think Electrical is still playing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're my friends. But they take periods of hiatus as well. They're all dads now as well. But I just saw something on Instagram. I think they're all recording or in the jam room again. So
Right.
I think if you don't be too hard on yourself, if you enjoy music for what it is, then continue doing it. But if you're in it to like, okay, this is my full-time, I'm going to make it a full-time career. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to stop. Then maybe your expectations are different.
Okay.
And then your lifeline is going to be shortened as well. Because, your passion is maybe connected to the realities of money as well.
You had your own band called Vertical Rush.
Yeah, I did.
So you're a musician as well.
I was a singer. I was a singer.
So you're the lead singer for the band. What happened to that band?
We did it for 10 years, and then we had a label closing party in 2011 December.
Wait. Label closing party. You're talking about Wake Me Up
Yeah,
Music.
yeah. We had-
folded.
Yeah, we folded in 2011.
Okay.
And we did it at the now defunct Home Club, which is now called Canvas. and we did a 2-day like closing party festival. First day was all the current bands that were still playing,
Right.
and the second day we reunited all the old bands to play as well.
Okay.
So our last show was in December 2011. Yeah.
But why did the band disband?
I think a lot of us became dads, you know.
Okay.
So the reality was like I personally remember that when we started jamming and practicing for that session, like turning up for 10 p.m. practices and going home at 1, and then seeing my kid jump on my bed at 7 a.m. in the morning or earlier was just way too tiring, you know. So the realities of that hit. I think as individuals and in terms of our degree of love for music and all that, we're all kind of heading in different directions as well.
Okay, but playing Sunset, some of them should be dads also, right?
Yeah. Sham, the guitarist, was my neighbor in
They continue.
They continued, yeah.
You guys couldn't have that commitment.
No, they were. I think they had a different magic formula. You know, for us, I think 10 years was good, and we just decided, I think our main songwriter Nick, he also was dabbling he was actually pursuing a solo career as well.
Okay.
So he started putting more commitment to that. Me, I was like, you know what? I personally think that I'm really tired. You know?
So screw this. I'm not going to do this no
I'm
more.
not screwed. I think there were always talks about trying to do it again, but you know, sometimes there's a little bit of cabin fever. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of like, wow, the effort to go back and jam, like rent a rehearsal studio, 10 o'clock, go home at, you know, you end at 12, and you go home at 1.
So fun, man.
It's so fun, yeah. Fun if I was in my 20s, but you know, with work and all that, especially, and especially when you're in like your 30s, right? You're trying to build a career, and you know, you've got commitments. But almost all of us I think half of us became parents. Like three of the 5 members became parents.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was tough.
I don't know, man. Drag me back into the studio any day, dude.
I don't mind going back to record a few unreleased songs at this moment, but I don't mind just recording it, releasing it, put it on Spotify and Apple Music, you know. And
Why the fuck not, right?
I'll be happy.
Yeah, you have so you have unreleased stuff that's yet for the public to hear, to listen to.
I think we do, and I don't think I finished writing the lyrics as well. So it's been a long time.
Okay, so now that you're on my show, and now that you've mentioned this on camera, so I'm going to ask you: are you going to do it?
I don't know. I gotta ask the other band member. Actually, it'll be really hard because our guitarist, he's in Germany now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be tough.
Well, you can get another guitarist.
No, he's pivotal to the band. He's pivotal to the songwriting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mess about that then.
No, but it's definitely an idea that's crossed my mind. I don't know about the rest of them, but it's definitely crossed my mind a little bit.
So that's Vertical Rush. Now tell me about Wake Me Up Music. Why did it fold?
It was tough, man. You know, at one point I remember the bunch of us I was manning the record label, and we were managing the bands as well.
Right.
You know, the bands, and then I think we were always looking for a bunch of new people to take over.
Okay.
Yeah, take over the management of the label, and then the older guys would kind of just take a step back and be a bit more in terms of like general management and all that. I think we could not find anyone who was willing to take it on with a similar ethos to the way we ran it as well. There were definitely a few guys that came along, but I knew that they were destined to do, you know, bigger things, like, you know, building their own companies. And I think my ex intern, his name is Nick. He ended up starting a really good production company as well, you know. But he was definitely someone that a bunch of us hoped that he would take over the running of things and all that, you know. So I think the three of us, myself, Ray, John Hemsley, this British guy who was part of the label as well, and another guy, John Cheong, he migrated to Melbourne as well. So we all just like, you know what? Yeah, let's just end with a big bang. You know, we're not young anymore. It is not our full-time gig.
Yep.
I think we've done what we've set out to do. Yeah, so we've built these bridges. We've seen our bands get successful in their own right. And we see bands who, you know, see the kids that came to our show start their own bands. and they became successful in their own right as well. So I think like, yeah, we're satisfied. Let's end and let's call it a night. And then it was the best closing party ever.
I'm sure, man.
I think we Home Club told us we set the record for the most amount of beer consumed on one night. So it was beautiful. Yeah.
You mentioned you used the word ethos just now. Getting someone who's got the same ethos to take over the running and management of the label. And based on that, on what you just said, first of all, can you define to me, in your own words, what do you mean by that ethos? The kind of person that to take over an independent label. In your mind.
In my mind, I think like how I got involved was I was just a volunteer,
Right.
And I was very hungry to just like learn new things and kind of just take things on without instructions. And I think John, who was one of the founders of the label, he was a mentor of mine as well. He was like, his style is to throw me in the deep end and then I'll just try to survive. But I think he as a friend, he was always there to kind of pull me out from the water and just say, okay, this is what you can do. But there's a certain amount of teachability that was needed as well.
Right.
A certain amount of self-sacrifice. Like, okay, this passion project is gonna take a lot of time. Do I see someone that is going to be involved doing that, or will the person have the stamina to do that as well? Because if you're going to just treat it as like, I'll come in, I want to build my own personal clout, I want to do it for myself, and then once I've reached that level, I'll leave. I'll do something else. Then it won't be. You're not doing the roster of bands any justice.
Basically, the guy wouldn't have the basis at all, isn't it? I mean, if like you said just now, it's a passion project.
Yeah. At that time,
and the passion is about the culture, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhat. The culture, the belief in the system.
The belief in this. Yes, exactly. So, the thing about all this independent music, even the ones you made, you built a culture with it, and hence a following. And in your opinion, therefore, how do you define that culture?
Well, that's tough to answer, man. Can you give me some lead answers?
Well, I mean, you guys started the label, right? Because you want to give publicity to independent bands who otherwise would not have had any avenue to get that kind of publicity. There was a motivation behind it.
Yeah.
And through that motivation, a sort of a culture was built.
Yeah.
Right? Where you have, like you said, the winding down party was one of the best parties ever. It set the record, right? Most beers. It was, and the reason for that is because the following got so big. Yeah. And it was therefore a culture that you've built.
Yeah.
How would you define or describe that culture?
I think a lot of it was a culture of honor, so we did not want to keep things incubated just on our own. We always wanted to pass it forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would not look down on younger bands. Sometimes if you're the old man on the block, you would kind of scoff at new things. I mean, it happens to the best of us. Like as you get older, you're just not as open-minded about new things and all that. I think it was a very intentional thing back then where we were like, we'll support the younger bands, and we'll build these bridges, So that was one culture that I think we developed, and that's how we managed to get a community and
I
a following.
find this so interesting. You know why, Esmond? We've just only met,
like 20 minutes ago.
Exactly. And I know nothing, next to nothing, about the world that you live in, or have grown up in, or grew up in, or built even. And hearing everything that you've just said, and now that I've asked you about the culture that you built, I'm surprised at your answer. Because what I see is this is a culture, independent music, of a guy who was driven to strive towards making sure that it's blown out there, and for Singapore to see at least, And this culture stemmed from even things like streetwear, skating.
For my venture into streetwear came a bit after that.
No, I know that, but to me, it's like, the guys who would be really trendy in those kind of outfits and and stuff like that, and into a certain kind of music that you've mentioned also early on in the show, and how, like emo.
Yeah.
What was the one you said before that?
Punk.
Okay, punk was also my time.
Yeah, but there are many variations.
There were many variations of punk, and that's a culture that you made sure that everyone knew about, mainstream at least.
Yeah, I think another thing that kept us all together was just the DIY attitude. Do it yourself.
Yeah, okay.
So that was another aspect of like us, and not only to us, but a lot of the other community collectives out there.
Right.
In our time, we were all very DIY. So we already were swimming against the tide because we were not popular music back then.
Right.
So we always had to do it ourselves. Like when you make flyers, you use a machine.
Yeah, I've seen those.
You've seen all that, right?
Simple stuff.
Even our first records and all that, we would go and burn CDs on each other's computers.
Right.
And we'll go and Xerox it. Go to the printers and print, cut, and all that.
Yeah.
And then sticker ourselves and all that. So I think just that DIY attitude, and the DIY attitude is very prevalent in both skateboarding, in music,
That's
punk,
that's
and all
what
that.
I'm saying. You see,
Yeah,
this
so
is how
that's-
I see it. Man.
Yeah, so that's that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember, because I'm a lot older, I remember days when I walk along Orchard Road and sometimes I see this odd black and white photocopied, sort of a promo stuck on lampposts and on traffic lights.
Those are things you saw in Singapore back then, but you still see a lot of it overseas, right? In major cities. Those wheat pasted posters. Right?
Yeah. This is how I see it. This is how I think it is. I think that's the culture that you've helped build as well. You're certainly very much responsible for that.
I don't think responsible. I think we're part of the ecosystem and part of just what was happening at that time. But there are many people who were doing things like us.
I
back
accept
then.
the modesty, mate.
Yeah.
I've met two up and coming rappers on the show over the past couple of weeks, and what I realized is that just like Wake Me Up Music and what you guys did before, these guys are also building a culture of their own.
Mm-hmm.
And indie rock and hip hop are not just genres. These seem to be cultures with massive followings. How do you develop a culture and build a following?
Wow, another loaded question. Lots of things have to click, I guess. Your message has to kind of be, I won't say, has to be relatable to the audience so that the audience can identify with it.
Yeah.
I think I got into all this because I was a bit like a creative kid, I didn't really fit into a lot of things in school. I was also a bit geeky and nerdy as well in secondary school.
Really?
Comics and all that stuff as well.
Okay.
And the music community felt safe to me. Yeah, there were many people who were into these things like I was, and as I got to know these people, I guess other people out of the woods came about and we all became friends, and it started building and building and building from then on as well. So I think culture is built like that, where there's synergy among people. There's relatability as well with individuals, and it translates into a bigger community, a bigger amount of people as well.
Right.
And there's same messages that people agree with, same ethos,
Right.
same point of view, all that lah. So I think for what.
So it is about a community of people who relate with each other.
Yeah.
A community of similarities.
Yeah.
Of interests. Same thing, because what these guys said to me, the guys in the hip hop community, that there is an underground hip hop community in Singapore.
Yeah.
And apparently it's really, really vibrant.
Yeah.
So basically you're saying the same thing. People with the same interests, people who are passionate about this one thing coming together, and then it starts to grow. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's even more pronounced in Singapore when you meet these people, because I think with our education system and what's presented to us growing up and all that, it's very, I won't say sterile, but it's very systematic, like interest as well and all that. So when you go, off tangent a little bit,
Yep.
and you find someone else who's into that,
Yeah.
you get pretty stoked as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even in today's context, like if you look across, like, okay, cosplayers as well.
Yeah.
That's a subculture on its
Yeah,
own
it
as
is,
well.
yes, correct,
and people who collect people who are into yo-yoing,
Yo-yoing,
and people who I just recently discovered that my friend was into collecting insects, and all that stuff as well. So,
I know someone who does that as well.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but you said something about mainstream school system being sterile, systematic. What do you think? Do you think that a school system should actually introduce some of these kind of things?
I think there should be a lot more effort put into arts education in our school.
We're lacking, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we are. Yeah. I remember in secondary school, art is basically a subject within your 6-hour day or something like that,
Yeah,
and a lot of it is just based on what's from the textbook or what the art teacher teaches, art history and all
Contemporary.
contemporary art as well. But art and culture and all that has become such a big thing right now, and you can, in Singapore's interest, yes, you can create industries out of it.
Yeah.
Like the clothing brands I distribute would not exist if there was no art culture as well. Because like Shepard Fairey, who founder of Obey, is a global street artist in his own as well. So I think a lot of things can be developed in our school system as well for the arts in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so too, yeah.
Because not everybody is going to be that mathematician or doctor or lawyer or
yeah.
all that. I remember, and I always had very low self-esteem in school because I came back late. I was based overseas. My parents were based overseas.
Okay.
So I remember I was a year. I was in the American school system. So
Okay.
it's probably a year behind the Singapore school system. But I was always trying to play catch up, and I was like, I'm never as good as the kids in A and B class,
Right.
But I knew I was a little bit more creative. But no one ever gave me an encouragement for being creative back then as well. It was only after secondary school, went to poly, I was like, oh, okay. And then you going to, and being involved in this music community as well, that encouraged me to be that way lah.
Your kids, are they creative?
All of them are, I think. My daughter is homeschooled, by the way. So
Oh.
after the PSLEs, we pulled her out and was like, yeah, we're gonna homeschool her.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why did you decide to do that?
We just realized that her last 2 years of primary school was not great emotionally for her. The PSLEs was stressful as well.
Yeah.
And we felt that she wasn't getting the right support. In a class of 40 students, if you're kind of middle ground, you're not too extreme, you kind of get lost in the pack as well,
Right.
So we realized it really affected her self-esteem, and at that time we were, I think, somewhat in the middle of her primary 6. We went to a homeschool convention, and then we were just really impressed by the homeschooling kids that were presenting what they were learning, reasons on why they are pursuing homeschooling. And almost all of them that were standing up and talking were about to enter university. So it's like, oh, okay, you just bucked the trend. Like you didn't have to go to NUS. You didn't have to go to JC or Poly. You made it straight to university based on transcripts and your own, and taking maybe I think some of them took SATs, independent SATs and all
Right,
that, and
right.
yeah, it qualified. So it just opened up another big door and big world to us. And at the same time, I'm looking at the world today, and where you can find information everywhere now. So you don't really need to be you don't need to be an information guy.
Sure.
Kind of need to learn how to adapt to changes.
Yeah.
So I want my kids to at least be able to be adapted. I feel that the Singapore school system is very structured, and I won't say it kills adaptability, but it does affect the way we process things later in life. Yeah.
Critical thinking and all that.
Yeah.
Using a bit more of your initiative than following a guidebook.
Exactly.
Yeah. So so your eldest is being homeschooled. How about you? Do you plan to do that for the other two?
Yeah, we're considering. I mean, my first son, he does well in the system. He's good at planning. He's good at whatever he's doing with school. He enjoys ticking things off the checklist. My daughter is a little bit different. She's quite a dreamer.
She's a right brainer.
Yeah, I don't even know the differences between the two brains, but
right brain is the creative side. Left brain is the more organized side.
Okay, so she's a right brainer then. Yeah, so she's just very divergent in the way she thinks. She can do something. She'll get to point A to point B, not in the way you tell her to. She'll find her own way, but she'll get there. Yeah, and
that's genius.
It's hard for her to be in that system because I was looking through her math textbooks and her maths, like prepping for PSLE. I was like, even though she would get the answer right,
but the working's not according to what the school wants.
The method was wrong.
Yeah,
and it's like then I had an argument as well. My wife. I didn't have an argument with my wife, but we had a bit of a moment. It was like, huh? So the answer is right, but she's still gonna get it wrong because she didn't follow these steps.
Yeah,
yeah. So that was another.
Sucks, man.
Yeah.
I tell you, I hate that shit too, man.
Yeah.
I think it's really stupid. It's really stupid. Yeah, it is. Because we are stymieing creative thinking, innovation. We're stymieing all that. A kid that takes the initiative to find a different way to get to the same space or same place, the same answer.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I think credit should be given to the kid for doing that instead. And it really sucks. Believe me, I know my kid's going to go through a PSLE next year. So
12, right?
Yeah. So sucks, man. Yeah. So your kids are creative, and that's great.
Yeah.
And would you encourage them to go down the road you've traveled?
Yeah, I would be very open for them to do whatever they want. Really, I would love for them to explore these ways, but I think at the end of the day, I just want them to be happy and want them to be satisfied with what they're doing, and not grow up with self-esteem issues and all of that as well. So I think as parents, we're trying our best to provide them with that atmosphere and that environment for them to thrive as individuals.
Yeah. These days, you seem to be working at two companies. Practical Measures, we talked about that, and Secret Signals.
Yep.
Can you tell me more about Secret Signals?
So it was a business that I started out with one of my Wake Me Up Music interns.
Okay.
Yeah. And we started in 2012. So our sole objective was, at that time he was like, hey, we've built these relationships with all these overseas acts that we're bringing to town. Like at that time we were involved with Bay Beats.
Bay Beats.
Yeah, so as Wake Me Up Music, we were one of the people that were behind Bay Beats.
Wow.
In 2006 or something. So it was co-created with Wake Me Up Music and the Esplanade.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had built relationships with bands and record labels overseas and all that. But these guys, in their own right, were independent music back. The US is big enough to have a thriving independent scene because of critical mass.
Okay.
Over here, just like
we're tiny,
or small. At that time, I think our population was 4 million. Right.
Tiny.
Yeah. But something could be done, right? Like to help promote that kind of music in Asia. But there wasn't anything back then.
Okay.
But we had already built these cross-border relationships.
Right.
Like whenever you bring a band in, you're gonna try to make their destination to Asia, their journey to Asia, more worth it. Like instead of just playing a show in Singapore, they'll stop in Singapore, but they should play something in Thailand. They should play a show in the Philippines.
Right.
They should play a show in Malaysia.
Right.
Just to make that whole thing worth it. And through that, relationship with promoters and friends overseas and in the region, that helped build a little network as well. So Samir, my now partner, ex-intern, was like, we should do something about this. So he went to study music in Texas, in the US.
Okay.
After that, and we didn't really continue the working relationship with some of these bands after we had stopped doing all this, but he, on his own initiatives, started building up relationships with these guys and volunteered himself to intern at their labels as well. So he was at that age. I mean, he was damn irritating back then. He would just talk too much and stick his head into it and nose into everything and all that. He was a real pest, but he's one of my closest friends now, right?
Okay, the pest is your closest friend.
Yeah. He's also a bit younger, but all these annoying points of him, qualities of his, really got him to where he is today. So he works for a record label in the States now called Network. They're famous for Sarah McLachlan and all these guys.
Wow.
I think they released Coldplay in the US back when Coldplay was small as well. So he said, hey, we should just do something in Asia. Well, let's promote our friends' brands in Asia. We'll set up a Southeast Asian connection. We'll get in touch with press in Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, and let's build it with our friends first. Let's build it with these small bands first. Let's take these small bands as our clients first.
And so it looks as if Wake Me Up Music is kind of back.
No. It's very different. Secret Signals. That's so Secret Signals is a
different name, but you're back doing what you were doing before.
just not performing and all that. But so Secret Signals is a publicity company. We're solely a publicity and marketing company.
Okay.
So we act as PR representatives for record labels and bands, and we service music press and digital aggregators.
Dude, it sounds the same to me. But the difference is that it's digital. It's a digital version of Wake Me Up Music.
Yeah, it's different. I think the thing different is like we don't have to take care of their music catalog. We don't have to sell the music. We don't have to manage the bands.
Is that such a big difference just because you don't have those involved?
Yeah, major difference. So if you go to the West and you see in the UK and the US and most bands have a publicist.
Right.
They have the record label as well. Now with digital music, they have a digital aggregator as well. Someone that distributes the music digitally.
Right.
And each band also has a manager as well. So and they're all different roles, and they could very well be all different companies. And in Asia, it's a little bit all mixed up as well.
Right.
So what we decide is we're gonna start and build really small. We're gonna help our friends, but we're only gonna do marketing and publicity.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go back to practical measures.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just me and my wife though. It's not.
Let's go back to practical measures. Okay. Let's go there to be practical.
Yeah.
You specialize in, as you said earlier, in distributing independent street and lifestyle brands.
Yeah.
And you said Obey Clothing. Why did you decide to start this business?
So interesting story. During the Asian financial crisis, I think it was like 2009.
No, 1980s, 97, 1998.
Then what was the one in 2008? That was
that's
the
Asian- Lehman Brothers
yes.
is 2008.
Yeah, so I was working for a PR company back then, a small boutique agency,
Okay.
and obviously still running Wake Me Up Music. And then I was supposed to go and work for someone else after that. But during that transition, the financial crisis hit, and suddenly I had no job. So
You mean you were retrenched?
I wasn't retrenched. I actually quit the PR agency to join another company.
Okay.
But before I could join the other company and sign the dotted line or whatever, I was told, "Oh, we can't hire you anymore." Yeah. So
Ouch.
it was like a year of desperation and depression that I had. So I was just game to do anything my daughter was just born. She was only like a year and a half, 2 years old. My flat was going to be ready in 2010 as well.
Oh, shit.
So there was a lot of pressure. And my wife had also stopped working at MediaCorp.
Oh,
so
shit.
she was a writer in MediaCorp. And she stopped. So I was like, oh my God, all these things came crashing. But I was just kind of game to do anything. So Wake Me Up Music was still running, but we knew that we were only going to last maybe about a year longer, and then probably just fold after that, So with my involvement with music and in the regional music scene, a good friend of mine from Malaysia kind of recommended me to. So there's another brand called Macbeth Footwear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a shoe brand that
Yeah.
was started out by Tom DeLonge of Blink 182, this pop punk band in the early 2000s, and they had an Indonesian HQ,
Right.
and they were looking for people to work with in Singapore
Okay.
to kind of seed their shoes to local musicians.
Okay.
So it's like influencer marketing back then, lah.
Okay.
So my friend from Malaysia, he was like, "Hey, yeah, just talk to Esmond. He can probably, hook you up with a bunch of bands to wear your shoes and all that." And at that time, I was like in the dumps, right? I was like depressed, and I was like, you know what? I'll just help you out for fun. Maybe something can happen.
Okay.
So the guy in Indonesia, Tim, he held the distribution license for Macbeth
Okay.
for Southeast Asia, and he met me, and we're like, he said, "Yeah, what can you do?" It's like, "Hey, you know what? There are these bands that I manage, and these bands that I'm friends with. They're gonna be right for your brand. I'm just gonna pass the shoes to them. I'll take orders or whatever. But yeah, we'll just give shoes to them, and then we'll get them to wear at music shows and all that, and rock shows and all that." So I think I remember the pivotal moment was MediaCorp actually had a prime time slot for local music
Okay.
called Live and Loaded.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And I think it was like at 7:30 p.m. prime time, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And thank God that my wife was ex MediaCorp, right? So she knew all the writers. So I was just like, "Hey Sue, can you tell your colleagues that if they need prizes or anything, we could just give away shoes." So we managed to put the shoes on primetime TV, and then
Oh, that must have impressed that guy, Tim.
yeah, so Tim was like, "Whoa, that's not bad." So at that time also there was one store selling Macbeth in Singapore.
Okay.
And we were like, let's get it to the hands of more people. And I think that store wasn't too keen on getting it out of the store. So Tim and I were like, "Yo, let's just set up a company in Singapore
Okay.
to sell the shoes."
Right.
And I didn't know that he had distribution rights to Obey as well, and a couple of other brands.
Ah.
So it was in 2009, we decided, yeah, let's start doing it. Let's sell to shops. And in 2010, we registered the company in Singapore to distribute. So it was called a different name back then. It was called Supply and Demand.
Okay.
But we started the journey back then. And it was really because of my involvement in local music that kind of gave me this opportunity to do that.
That's freaking amazing, man.
Yeah.
So you lost. Well, no, you quit your job. You're supposed to go into the other one, and they said they can't hire you.
Yeah.
And then down the doldrums, really crisis time and crunch time as hell.
Yeah.
And then this thing fell in your lap, and it was just supposed to be, I'm just gonna help you out. Okay, that's about the size of it.
I mean, I did ask, like, "Hey, can you give me a bit of cash for it?" Like,
Yeah.
okay, if you find bands, I'll just pay a small fee. And then I
Okay.
remember the fee was like $400 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and
then after that, when it got in prime time, and then Tim was impressed.
he said, "Yeah, maybe we can do something." And I gave him the idea. It's like, yeah.
So how long was that period, man, between the time that you left your last job
Yeah.
and then got into this crisis and
Right.
then starting the business, supply and demand?
Yeah.
How long was that period?
About a year. Because I remember not working in 2009. So I was doing like small freelance gigs here and there, whatever I could find. I remember sleeping at 2, waking up at 1. Sleeping at 2 a.m., waking up at like 12 noon. And my wife was like, don't know how to help me as well, because she's never seen me in that state.
Right.
And then my daughter was also like 2 years old as well. So I was trying to like just keep it all together. And I don't know why I was just kind of just like, yeah, let's just take a chance on this because and you must know that in my brain, like music was gonna end already for me because we knew that in 2010 2011, like it was we're getting less and less busy for Wake Me Up Music because we were all starting to become parents and getting married and all that. Our full-time jobs were taking priority as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, let's just try it out.
Okay. And did it help you and your family?
Yeah,
Your business?
I mean, I think I came into it with a very open mind, and I got advice from friends like, how much should I charge them? Like, how much should my salary be when we set the company up? But it was really just like very bootstrap lah. So I remember my first salary came from as commission for the number of shoes we sold.
Right.
And then once we had enough money in the bank account, we would rent a storage space.
Right.
And once the storage space got too small, we found a permanent storage space, a warehouse.
Right.
But we didn't even install air conditioning until 6 months after that because we needed to have enough money in the bank and profit to afford an air conditioner
Right.
as well.
So
So it
you
was
guys really built everything from...
yeah, so it was very DIY again. You
Yeah,
know? And I think it was like that ethos that really carried over from the music days
Seems
as well.
so, man. It
Yeah.
seems so, man. So, besides Obey, there's Looser Machine, Para Clothing.
Yeah.
So all this is because Tim has the
Yeah,
distribution license.
Tim had distribution for Macbeth, Obey, a watch brand called Vestal, another clothing brand called Famous Stars and Straps. These are really popular action sports brands and streetwear brands back then, and they were all music lifestyle related. I mean, Obey is a little bit different. Like it's got its roots in punk, hip hop, metal, skateboarding, and all that. So Obey was definitely the biggest one in terms of portfolio.
Right.
But for Macbeth, we really built the brand in Southeast Asia because
Okay.
we were selling Macbeth in Southeast Asia before Vans set up an office in Singapore, in APAC. So at that time, Vans was still under distribution with,
Right.
I think, Royal Sporting House and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I didn't realize at that time, but Tim was doing all that building in Indonesia already with local Indonesian bands. And
yes.
back then in 2009 or 2010, I don't think you would get a Nike or Adidas to flow shoes to these punk bands in Indonesia and all that. So Tim did that. It's
Right.
like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna put Macbeth on the feet of Bali's most famous lifeguards,
Okay.
the guys that patrol the beaches,
Right.
and then we'll give it to all the best rock and roll bands in Indonesia and Jakarta and all that. So
Right.
the brand started like getting really big, and obviously with the association of the bands that they were already endorsing in
Yeah.
the US,
Right.
it was right up my alley because they were endorsing bands like My Chemical Romance and all that. So it just made it was just very, I won't say easy work, but it kind of just all clicked together. So in Malaysia, we were doing the same thing. So it really became in a year or two, we really became this company that had a distribution arm in Singapore, had its HQ in Bali.
Right.
And we were selling to Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and all that as well.
So it's been what, 10 years?
Yeah. So in 2015, we had to close the company down because Macbeth was sold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tom DeLong, the founder of Macbeth, sold the brand to another company.
Okay.
And it's damn hard to run a footwear brand if you're not Nike or Adidas. I mean, if you don't have that kind of cloud volume,
Right.
financial banking, and all that, it's hard work. So I can totally understand why the brand was sold.
Okay.
As well. So after the company was closed, every individual rep in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, we all set up our own individual companies to distribute domestically for
Okay.
the brands, and then we took on other brands along the way. So I took on a couple of different brands along the way as
So
well.
things are good?
Things are okay. I mean, streetwear has definitely changed in the last five years because luxury has really become a part of it as well. Like all your luxury houses are now claiming that they are also streetwear, right?
Right,
And they're putting out silhouettes and aesthetics that mirror whatever streetwear was over these, the last since 2000.
Okay. Let's plug this on our show.
Yeah.
Plug in your products, your practical measures on the show, so that we'll have it on this program. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
So do your favor, man.
Yeah, you can visit obeyclothing.asia to purchase Obey clothing. Yeah.
There you go.
Heard that.
You've heard that.
You can
Okay.
email Chris for a discount code.
Email someone else. You'll see the end of this show. Okay, look out for the footage. Right. So I'd like to say thank you so very much, Esmond, for being on KWC today.
Yeah,
we
thanks for
wish you all the
having me.
very best, man. Because you are really, I mean, just got to tell you, in my mind, I think you're really very you played a prominent role, for independent music in Singapore and for independent music culture. Really, you played a pivotal role, and that's for sure.
Yeah, I hate taking credit for myself. I that's why I'm always gonna say it was the community and the people that were there with me. I just managed to take certain opportunities.
You're just a catalyst, man.
Thank you.
And communities are built because one or two or three come together and go, let's do this. And communities grow.
Yeah.
And you're part of that, man.
Yeah.
You were very pivotal for that, for this to happen. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having
and
me.
I wish you a very happy Christmas, okay?
You too.
Thank you so very much for joining me and my Kopi Kaki, Esmond Wee, on this episode of KWC Kopi with Chris. We'll see you again soon. Stay safe. Stay sane. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah.